Hey guys, we're going to look at the JShell today. JShell came in JDK 9, and what it is Java's REPL tool. This is a command line tool, and REPL, if you don't know, stands for read, evaluate, print, loop. And that's just what JShell does. It gives you a prompt, it takes your input, it evaluates it, it does what you ask, hopefully, and it returns the prompt and it waits for your next instruction. Now, if you're used to working at the command line, most of this will feel pretty intuitive. The benefits of JShell, immediate gratification in this age of immediate gratification. For beginners, this is a way to practice and learn the basics of Java language without having to create classes when you might not even understand what a class is or what it's for yet, or having to constantly type public static void main when you don't even know what access modifiers or return types are yet. For an experienced developer, using JShell is a way to test little bits of code, or snippets as they are known in the JShell, without all of that boilerplate stuff that you might not need. And all you need to use JShell is JDK 9 or better and your favorite terminal. I'm using Linux Bash today, and if you're using an IDE like IntelliJ or Eclipse, you can use the terminal in either one of those. Now the downside is, well, it's not really a downside, I should say its limitations are that it's just not meant for developing an application. Nothing really too big can happen here in JShell. It doesn't take the place of an IDE in any way, and you'll see in a few moments that we can't even create packages. The JShell is just for testing snippets and for being used as a learning tool. Now, I had originally planned on just making a simple 10-minute video and cramming as much into it as I possibly could. But it's just not possible to do with JShell. Even a basic introduction will take a little more time. So I went a little long, of course, and I'm going to divide this into two shorter videos. The second video continuing directly from the first. I strongly encourage you to follow along in your own terminal. This might seem like a lot to take in, but if you just follow along, practice a little every day, and the memorization will just come naturally. So enough talk, let's get into the JShell. So alright guys, first I want to show you that other languages have tools similar to JShell. For example, Python has an interactive console. I can simply type Python here, and you see I get a prompt, and I can do things like create variables right off the bat. Name equals Bilbo. Now if I call name, there you go, there's Bilbo. So this isn't a new concept. Java isn't knocking anyone's socks off here. It's just, this is Java playing a little catch up with other languages, but I feel it can really benefit a new student of Java because the Java syntax and what it takes to run a Java program is more complicated. So it'll save time and confusion and allow a student to just start playing with simple things like variable assignments without having to create a class and a main method and all of that. So let's get out of here. So now the first thing we need to is make sure that we have an acceptable version of Java. To do that, I can say Java version. You can see I have Java 13 installed, which is great because we only need 9 or better, so we're all good. So we can get into our JShell by typing, guess what? JShell. And I get a nice welcome greeting and a prompt. So here I can enter some statement. Let's say I'll just create a variable. Say I equals 10. And you notice I didn't use the semicolon there. In the JShell has a compiler, but it's much more forgiving than the normal Java compiler, so we don't actually have to use semicolons. Although I highly recommend it for any student that's learning Java. You should practice all the syntax. You're getting out of a lot using the JShell anyway. You should definitely practice these little things. You know, it's not Python, it's Java. It's very strict, and you should be in the habit of using the semicolons where they're really needed. You don't have to do that, but I'd recommend it for a new student especially. So another thing you can do in JShell, that compiler, again, forgiving, we can redeclare variables. I can overwrite a variable. So let's go ahead and do this again. We'll do it the right way. Use the semicolon, and there you go. So we have our variable I with a value of 10. Another way to create a variable is here, let's say I perform some kind of an operation here. So we say 5 plus 6. And you see I get back this funny $ number thing here pointing to the sum of our operation here. Now this is a temporary or scratch variable, and this is provided by the JShell. So there are two types of variables here: explicit variables that we create, and these implicit scratch variables that are created by the JShell. And you can use these just like any variable. You know, we can say system.out.println, and there's our 11. We can also perform an operation with it. Now before I go any further, I'm going to open another terminal here. And I'm going to show you another way to get into the JShell, a way that's probably better for someone just starting out. This time I'm going to type JShell, and we're going to add a -v. The V stands for verbose. And this will allow us to get more information from the JShell when we run commands. I'm also going to add show version. And this is going to show us what version of the JShell we're using, and then it's going to enter the JShell. We'll hit enter. Version 13. And there you go. So now we're in verbose mode. So what does that mean? Well, let's declare those variables again and see what the difference is. We said int I equals 10. So you see we get a little more information here. It's saying created variable I, and it's showing us that it is of type int. And you see we also have this little pipe symbol here. And that what that tells us is that this is the JShell talking to us. Anytime we see the pipe symbol there, it means it's a message from the JShell just for us. And now you might notice that we have those pipes right here preceding the little welcome message. Now I'm going to get out of this JShell and close this terminal. And how do we get out of the JShell? Well, to exit, we can type exit, but since there's no other command that's spelled quite like this, we can actually shorten it. We could type EXI. We're still going to exit the terminal. It knows what we're talking about. We can go all the way down to EX, and the JShell still knows what we're talking about. It's going to let us exit. Now, an even faster way to exit is by typing Control D. But if we do that, we're not going to get this nice little farewell message. The JShell, it's very polite, you know. So it gives us this nice little polite send-off. JShell has good manners, and this one is closed. And now we can just go over here and play in verbose mode. So I'm going to hit Control L, clear the screen. Now I've cleared the screen of my Linux console, but everything we've done is still there. Now if we exit the JShell, all of our work will be lost. It's like main memory. We pull the plug without saving our work, and it's going to be lost. Now, there are ways of saving your commands, your creations in the JShell. I may or may not get to that in this course. So far we've created primitive variables, we've learned to exit the JShell, and that's pretty exciting stuff, but there's a lot more we can do. We can create all kinds of objects. For example, a collection object like Arraylist. Now normally before creating an array list, we'd need to import the java.util package at the top of our file. Well, we don't have a file, we're in the JShell, right? So our buddy the JShell has imported java.util along with several other packages for us. So they're already there for us by default before we even start it up. So we're not going to get the compile time error that we would get if we did this in our program. So there you go, there is our array list. We can check those default imports by typing /imports. And we get back a list of all the imports that are available to us at startup. Now if we want to add an import, say, let's say Java, how about SQL? And there we go, that worked. And how about stream? How about that? There you go. So if we go back and look at the imports again, by the way, we can just type import, imports, either one is acceptable. We can see that our explicit imports have been added to the list. Another important JShell command is reset. Reset is going to get rid of any variables we created, any imports we've added, and so on. So if I hit enter, you see it's resetting state. And then when we list our imports again, we can see that they have been removed. So back to this notion of snippets that I mentioned earlier. We've already made some snippets. We created variables in that array list. But then when we used the reset command, we cleared all of that, which we can verify by typing / vars. We looked at the imports. We know the imports are gone. We can check the variables with this command right here. See no variables. Although the variables that we created earlier are gone. So let's create some new snippets. Now what constitutes a valid snippet? Well, any valid Java code will work. Only one thing that we can't do, and that's create packages. I can't do something like it's going to tell us this is an illegal start of an expression. So let's try something legal. We did primitives, we created a collection. Let's create a class. We'll call it class JShell demo. And there you go, the class is created. Now let's try a method. How about void add to? We type our first bracket, we hit enter. Now don't get scared, this is just a continuation prompt we get if our code doesn't fit on one line. I could have typed this whole method out on one line, but that would look horrible, and we don't have to. So I do this, and we can just continue. Now here we do have to use the semicolon because we are still mid-snippet. Hit enter again, go ahead and put in our last bracket and hit enter. And there we've created a method. And in verbose mode, it's showing us that we created the method, the name of the method, and also what kind of arguments it takes. And of course, what good is a method if we can't call it? But we can. Let's pass some values. And we print 11 to the console. Excellent. Now really quick, a funny little thing about the print methods, if I just use println, I hit enter, you can see we don't get a scratch variable this time. Well, if you watch my intro to system.out.println video, you know that print and the println methods in the print stream class, they have void return types. Now printf, on the other hand, returns a print stream object. So let's try that. Here I'll create a variable. Now use the printf method. Go ahead and put our string in there. And we'll pass s. And look at that, there's our output and our scratch variable pointing to the print stream object. So okay guys, we're going to stop somewhat abruptly here. Stay tuned, the second part of this video will be coming along shortly. Not too much more info, just a few more examples. I'm going to show you how you can get help from the documentation in the JShell. So I hope you got something out of this. I'd appreciate it very much if you could show a little love and like and subscribe. And I will see you in part 2 of my JShell introduction. Be safe, be smart guys, and take care. I will see you soon. Bye bye.